the 2015 El Faro shipwreck, 3 lives were forever lost in the Bermuda Triangle due to a captain's decision. In an emergency at sea, our hull was breached, the vent was torn off in the storm. Water flooded 3 cargo holds, causing the ship to list severely. Our main engine failed, and the engineer couldn't restart it. This was the final distress signal received from the container ship El Faro, before it vanished completely in the Bermuda Triangle. 3 lives were lost forever because of one individual's decision. A story that seemed only possible in feudal times has now emerged in the 21st century. So what really happened on that fateful voyage? Who dared to venture into the forbidden waters of the North Atlantic? Welcome to the 2015 El Faro shipwreck. 3 people were forever lost in the Bermuda Triangle due to a captain's decision on Kanha TV. Before diving into today's shipwreck story, please leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the latest videos from Kanha. Now, without further ado, let's begin. On September 28, 2015, the crew began loading 11,000 tons of cargo onto the El Faro to prepare for departure to San Juan, Puerto Rico. The voyage involved 33 people, scheduled to depart the following evening, September 29. But at 4:50 p.m. that day, 3 hours before El Faro left port, the U.S. National Hurricane Center issued information about the formation of Tropical Storm Joaquin, along with a warning for the eastern Bahamas area, covering 73,000 square nautical miles, that Joaquin could strengthen into a hurricane by the 30th. However, this was nothing surprising to the El Faro crew. A month earlier, they had sailed the ship through the Florida Straits while Tropical Storm Erica ravaged Dominica. This time, Captain Michael Davidson believed Hurricane Joaquin was not a significant threat. He chose the direct route from the St. Johns River to San Juan Bay, passing through the storm's affected area. Like other hurricanes, Joaquin was influenced by global winds. Trade winds from Africa often push hurricanes toward the Caribbean. But the Bermuda High System could alter their path, steering them toward the North Atlantic. Joaquin was predicted to move similarly. The only question now was when it would turn northward, and how far west Joaquin would move before changing direction. Based on data from the National Hurricane Center that he has studied, Captain Michael Davidson was confident that Joaquin would turn before encountering El Faro. However, some crew members expressed doubts about his judgment. And sadly, they were right. At 9:30 p.m. on September 29, El Faro left Jacksonville, Florida, for Puerto Rico, while Tropical Storm Joaquin was a few hundred miles to the east. The scene was eerie, with the entire sky turning crimson red. According to the sailors' experience, this was an omen of extremely bad weather. Yet, Captain Davidson and the chief officer remained confident that they had thoroughly studied Joaquin's path through the BVS weather system, a system that visually displays information, updating the situation every 6 hours for the ship. At 5:04 a.m. on September 30th, the data on the BVS system changed. The forecast showed Joaquin had shifted southward. This information prompted Davidson to adjust a ship's course slightly southward, from 133 degrees to 140 degrees. By 6:25 a.m., another system on the El Faro, Tachi, received a forecast from the National Weather Agency. This forecast indicated that within the next 24 hours, Joaquin would be near El Faro's route, with winds of 75 knots, gusts up to 90 knots, and waves over 10 meters high. Clearly, there was a discrepancy between the two systems. The captain seemed unaware of the National Meteorological Agency's forecast. He still reassured the crew and called this course change a minor diversion to avoid the storm. All crew members were unable to stop Davidson, but tension and anxiety were evident on every face. At 12:22, Captain Davidson sent a routine midday report to the parent company, Maritime. He reported in detail that El Faro was currently about 440 kilometers from Jacksonville, moving at an average speed of 19.3 knots, with 2-meter waves from the east-northeast. Precautionary measures against Hurricane Joaquin were only briefly noted. 2 minutes later, the ship's satellite system received an emergency alert from the National Meteorological Agency stating Joaquin now had waves nearly 8 meters high, with sustained winds of 70 knots. gusting up to 85 knots, located just 300 nautical miles southeast of El Faro. At 13:12, the captain continued to send updates to top Maritime. However, the weather data did not match official reports. The puzzling thing was that despite all this, Davidson still decided to take a route through the old Bahama Channel, meaning steering straight into the path of the approaching hurricane. By 7 p.m., realizing that the storm would not shift northward as expected soon, he adjusted El Faro's course further south, from 140 degrees to 150 degrees. This change increased the distance between the ship and Hurricane Joaquin's center, which Davidson believed in. An hour later, he went to his cabin to rest and did not return for the next 8 hours. Throughout that time, El Faro continued to charge straight into disaster. As night fell and El Faro pressed on, the officers on the bridge discussed changing the route. Some grew more anxious, even contacting the captain in his cabin. But Davidson paid no heed to his subordinates' concerns and did not return to the bridge. He only said over the ship's phone that they should maintain the current course. At 1:15 a.m., the satellite radio on the bridge confirmed Joaquin had strengthened to Category 3 on the Saffir-Simpson scale, and at the same time, the ship suddenly began to roll heavily. It was the first sign that the ship had entered stormy seas. The crew quickly called the captain and informed him of the situation. However, the response they received was only Davidson's steadfast decision to proceed into the jaws of death. He ordered the ship to change to a heading of 116 degrees and then continue straight ahead. Unfortunately, this turn encountered strong winds, causing the ship to list heavily to starboard. The watch officer reacted swiftly by adjusting the ship to a heading of 114 degrees and maintained this course until the end of the watch. At this point, El Faro was approaching the small island of Savannah Cay from the northwest while Hurricane Joaquin was approaching from the northeast. The distance was 71 nautical miles, and Davidson was still fast asleep in his cabin. Waves crashing onto the deck grew larger, prompting the crew on the bridge to check the condition of life-saving equipment. It was a clear sign that fear was creeping into each of them. At 1:56 a.m., an enormous wave struck El Faro, washing a massive amount of water on the deck. It was followed by another wave, then a series of waves in succession. They reduced the ship's speed from 20 knots to below 18 knots. At 2:53 a.m., the alarm sounded for the first time. The crew struggled to control the ship as large waves continuously crashed in. The wind blew so fiercely that no one dared to leave the bridge. Unfortunately, they could not know how strong the wind was because the ship's only anemometer was broken. Nevertheless, the voyage data recorder, VDR, recorded winds of 58 knots, meaning wind speeds exceeded 100 km per hour by 3:30 a.m. The second mate on the ship made another course change to counter the wind. But she could not reduce the wind speed. The ship was now traveling at 16.89 knots. At 3:45 a.m., the first mate arrived to take over the watch and discovered that El Faro had listed 15 degrees to starboard. Wind and waves were sweeping across the ship from port to starboard with increasing force. All efforts to adjust course to reduce the list were largely ineffective. By 4:04 a.m., the ship's speed had dropped to 10 knots. The second mate retreated to her cabin in despair. She wrote an email to her mother with the content, "Re-following the weather, but there. Last I checked, it was a Category 3, with very strong winds and rough seas. I love everyone." At 4:09 a.m., Captain Davidson appeared on the bridge without showing any concern. Although the engineering team was pushing the engine to its limit, repeatedly forced to blow the tubes. This process reduced the engine power each time it was performed. At this point, El Faro had encountered a serious problem. The ship's main oil tank was not filled, 27 inches short of the standard level. This shortage hindered the flow of oil to the engine, which continuously lubricated essential components. Now, any sudden drop in pressure risked causing the engine to stop, leaving the ship adrift in the storm. At 4:46 a.m., the captain attempted to adjust the ship's list. He turned the ship north, almost into the wind, but this decision was based on outdated data. The latest report showed wind speeds up to 105 knots and the storm's eye only 17 kilometers away. At 5:15 a.m., chaos enveloped the bridge. The ship was listing 18 degrees to starboard and moving at 5.8 knots. The crew supervisor reported that everything was violently breaking loose on deck. Unfazed, Captain Davidson responded briefly. "Things will get better, we're on the backside of the storm now." Unfortunately, things had not gotten better at all. Water began flooding the stern, reducing El Faro's speed to 4 knots. Davidson now wanted to correct the ship's list to starboard. He ordered water to be transferred from the starboard tank to the port tank, then changed the ship's heading from 60 degrees to 350 degrees. This action restored the original list, but by 6:02 a.m. the second mate heard the alarm bell ringing in the engine room again. Water was flooding in through the ventilation shafts. 10 minutes later, the captain showed helplessness for the first time. He admitted the ship was in trouble as the engine had failed. By 6:31 a.m., the ship's speed was less than 5 knots. So it was almost being pushed by the wind. Davidson finally ordered everyone to the bridge. The second mate began drafting an emergency message for when they had to abandon ship. But even then, the captain still hoped the engineering team would restore the engine and save El Faro. He had no intention of abandoning the ship, even though it was taking the full force of the wind on the starboard side. The ventilation door was left open and water was flooding into hold number 3 severely. At 7 a.m., Davidson called the emergency call center, requesting to be connected to an authority to report the situation at sea. But everything seemed too late. In just the next few minutes, water flooded into a cargo hold. The list became increasingly severe and the engine was completely dead, and the ship was truly sinking. Finally, at 7:27 a.m., Davidson sounded the general alarm, ordering the crew to gather on the starboard side and abandon ship. On the bridge, 33 people panicked, searching for life jackets. However, at that time, they could not do much. All lifeboats on the port side had already sunk, while those on the starboard side could not be launched due to the ship's severe listing. A few minutes later, the El Faro sank into the depths of the Bermuda Triangle. 33 crew members remained on the ship almost until the last moment. If any of them were lucky enough to escape, they would also have to face the harshness of the sea and a fierce storm. On land, the Virginia Coast Guard, after receiving news that the El Faro was trapped in Hurricane Joaquin, dispatched an Air Force C-130 for rescue. This was the only vehicle capable of searching for and communicating with the ship. However, by 10:30 a.m., all attempts to contact the El Faro had failed. The Coast Guard requested assistance from the Emerald Express, the nearest ship. Unfortunately, the storm also struck the Emerald Express, preventing it from providing support. Meanwhile, the storm's wind speed had increased to 130 knots per hour. Approaching the El Faro's last reported position was too dangerous. No force could get within 100 nautical miles of it. The next day, a Hurricane Hunter aircraft attempted to get closer, but was forced to return to Florida after being damaged by the storm's effects. At 9:05 a.m., 26 hours after the first report, the Coast Guard made a difficult decision. They suspended the search until the storm passed. Deploying helicopters into the storm was considered, but it was too slow without the support of a Hurricane Hunter aircraft. On October 3rd, when the weather had improved, the search resumed. Rescue personnel combed the area for survivors, but found only a few of the El Faro's life rigs amid an desolate expanse. The Navy aircraft spotted 2 life rafts, one of which belonged to the El Faro. But when rescue forces arrived, they found no one. By the end of October 4th, a reconnaissance aircraft detected an orange survival suit with a body inside. However, before they could recover the body, they spotted another suit with someone waving from the water. The rescue team decided to mark the location of the first suit for later recovery, and quickly proceeded to the second location to rescue the survivor. But the result was still nothing found. When they tried to return to the location of the first suit, the body in the orange survival suit was no longer there. On October 5th, Air Force radar confirmed no large ships were in the area. This formed the basis for the Coast Guard to declare the El Faro sunk. To be certain, rescue forces continued searching for survivors. Unfortunately, they found nothing but the El Faro's life jackets and empty survival suits. The official search ended on October 7th. Rescue forces had searched for 154 hours. longer than the estimated survival time of 120 hours. The El Faro had sunk in very deep waters, making any rescue hope impossible. The tragedy left the public shocked and bewildered, wondering why a ship would head straight into such a storm. The subsequent investigation uncovered many errors that led to the disaster. They formed a chain of domino effects, making it nearly impossible for the ship to survive a Category 3 hurricane. First, the El Faro was not sturdy enough to withstand such a severe storm. At the time of the incident, the ship was 45 years old. It was built in 1975 and initially, El Faro operated as a truck carrier. In 1992, El Faro underwent a renovation. This renovation included adding a cargo hold on Deck 2 and another deck level. To balance the increased weight, 1,830 tons of iron ore were added. In 2006, a second renovation transformed El Faro into a container ship. However, this change increased the weight and raised the ship's center of gravity. To compensate, an additional 4,875 tons of iron ore were added. The renovation made El Faro less agile and harder to control in severe weather conditions. Afterward, the ship was docked for 6 years before resuming service on the Jacksonville-San Juan route in 2014. During this time, the owner neglected proper maintenance, leading to numerous technical issues inside the ship. This negligence resulted in the captains of El Faro and its sister ship El Yunque losing their jobs in 2015. Another factor contributing to the disaster was the unscientific cargo arrangement. Container vehicles had to be secured to sockets on the ship's deck, known as lashing points. However, on Deck 2 of El Faro, some container vehicles were placed incorrectly due to space constraints. This arrangement increased the risk of container vehicles breaking loose, especially those carrying heavy cargo. With the potential for 3 to 40 container vehicles being improperly secured, the ship was highly likely to list. Ultimately, the biggest mystery is why Captain Michael Davidson steered the ship directly into the storm. At that time, Davidson was 53 years old and had only worked for the company for 2 years. He transferred from Crawley Maritime in May 2013. Starting as the third mate and gradually rising to the rank of captain. Previously, Davidson had left his former company after a nearly similar incident. Only that time the consequences were not severe enough to become a disaster. However, congestion is one thing, but letting the ship sink is another. Investigators needed to retrieve the ship's voyage data recorder. To clarify the captain's intentions during that fateful voyage. Housed in a protective casing, similar to an aircraft's black box, the voyage data recorder, VDR, was crucial to the investigation. But accessing it was a challenging task due to the wreck lying deep on the ocean floor. On October 23, 2015, the U.S. Navy ship Apache began the search using various technologies. By October 31st, they had found the wreck of El Faro. Unfortunately, the bridge, mast, and voyage data recorder were missing. By April 2016, the ship Atlantis and the vehicle Century had located these missing parts. Later, Apache returned in August 2016 and successfully recovered the voyage data recorder. Through audio data from the ship's bridge, people could always speculate about what the captain was thinking while maintaining a course straight into the eye of the storm. According to investigators from the U.S. National Transportation Safety, one factor that may have influenced the captain's behavior was work pressure. With a personality always wanting to prove himself and determined to reach port on time, regardless of the weather. Additionally, he was overconfident in predicting the storm would shift north, based on outdated weather data. Moreover, past successes in facing difficult situations may have led him to underestimate the danger. Wrong decisions and ignoring the severity of the weather led to the tragedy. The alarming condition of the ship, the company's irresponsibility, and poor cargo management worsened the situation. All 33 people on board El Faro were declared missing and presumed dead. The parent company, Maritime, later contacted the victims' families to resolve the situation and compensate for damages. Clearly, we cannot bring back the 33 lost lives. But it is hoped that similar heartbreaking stories like El Faro 2015 will never happen again. As for you, what do you think about Captain Davidson's wrong decision? Leave your opinion in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to receive the latest content from Kanha TVs. And now, goodbye and see you again in the next videos.
If the veil stirred, subscribe and meet the next encounter.